All right, let's get this thread rolling. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of textile process controllers to help you totally nail that interview.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect blend of technical skills and serious attention to detail. You're the one making sure that every single thread and every weave is absolutely perfect.
It really is such an interesting field, and it needs a pretty specific skill set. You're not just like watching over machines, you know?
Right.
You're actually using really high-tech things like CAM and CIM to like optimize that entire process of how textiles get made.
Totally. And we're using RoleCatcher's Textile Process Controller Career Guide and Interview Guide to help us through this. They have tons of insights that could give you real advantage, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, did you know that Textile Process Controllers work super closely with the cost calculation office just to keep production on budget?
Yeah, for sure.
Something you probably wouldn't expect,
Yeah.
but it shows how important this role is to the whole business.
Absolutely. It's totally about finding that sweet spot between quality and efficiency and making sure everything is cost effective.
Okay, so let's jump right into some of the interview questions that they might throw at you.
Yeah.
The interview guide has some really good ones, so we're going to unpack each one.
Uh.
Figure out what the interviewer is really after and how to answer in a way that will knock their socks off. First up, what inspired you to pursue a career as a textile process controller?
Yeah.
Seems simple enough, but what do you think is the hidden message there?
They're totally trying to figure out if you're actually interested in the field or if you just need a job.
Yeah.
So really think about what drew you to this career path. Like maybe it's the whole science behind textile.
Yeah?
Maybe it's the challenge of making these super complicated processes work perfectly. Or even like if your family has a history in this industry,
Oh, yeah.
share that.
So instead of just saying, I need a job, I should talk about how I'm, fascinated with how fabrics are engineered or how I'm like really driven to make quality and efficiency work together perfectly.
Exactly. Show them you've really thought about this as your career.
Yeah.
And connect what you personally care about with like the core of this job.
Okay.
And definitely be ready for those follow-up questions. They might ask about your long-term plans in the textile industry or even about specific challenges you think you'll run into in this job and like how you plan to handle them.
Okay, good point. They want to see that you're in it for the long haul and ready to tackle those hurdles.
Right.
All right, next question. What are the key responsibilities of a textile process controller? Sounds like a pretty easy one, but is there more to it than just listing off what you do?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's really a chance to show that you understand how complex this role is and how it fits into that bigger picture of making textiles.
Okay.
So don't just give them a list of tasks, actually explain how they all connect and like contribute to making the whole operation successful. So for example, instead of just saying, I'll be in charge of quality control, you could say, I'm going to use my expertise in CAM and CIM systems to keep an eye on all the quality metrics during every single stage of production.
Wow.
This will make sure we're always meeting the highest standards while at the same time cutting down on waste and keeping costs under control.
Wow, that paints such a clearer picture of what you understand and how proactive you are. I bet they might ask you to go into more detail about a specific responsibility, like what would you do if a batch of fabric just doesn't meet those quality standards?
Exactly. Be ready to walk them through your process for solving problems. Use real examples from your own experience. You got to show them that you can analyze what's going on, make decisions, and come up with solutions that help both the quality and how much gets produced.
That's where those real-world examples become super important.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What experience do you have working in a textile manufacturing environment? This is where the rubber really hits the road, right?
Absolutely. Don't just give them a list of the jobs you've had.
Okay.
Really highlight what you achieved at each job and give them numbers to show what kind of impact you made. For example, instead of saying, I ran a weaving machine, you could say, by trying out a new threading technique on the weaving machine, I actually made things 15% more efficient and cut down on material waste by 10%.
That's an awesome way to show them how valuable you are and how much initiative you have.
Yeah.
And speaking of showing your value, there's this really cool thing in the career guide that talks about the different stages of a career as a textile process controller. It starts with entry level, like operating machines, and goes all the way up to like a senior level position where you're in charge of entire operations.
It really shows how much you can grow in this field.
Right.
You start by learning the technical stuff, then you take on more leadership roles, and eventually you could be shaping the future of how textiles are made.
That's so inspiring. It really shows how important it is to keep learning in this industry.
Yeah.
And speaking of learning, let's take a quick detour and talk about how RoleCatcher can be your secret weapon throughout this interview process.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
RoleCatcher uses AI, artificial intelligence, to look at job descriptions and then tailor your CV and resume so they highlight the most relevant skills and keywords.
Wow.
And this is huge because tons of companies are using these ATS systems now.
Yeah.
They're basically algorithms that scan for specific keywords to decide if your application even makes it to a human recruiter.
So it's like having a personalized career coach who knows exactly what those digital gatekeepers are looking for.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay. And if you really want to be super prepared, their Copilot AI subscription gives you personalized feedback on your interview answers, which can help you sound more polished and feel way more confident.
It's like having a practice interview with a pro who can point out what to improve and suggest ways to make your answers even stronger.
Awesome. So going back to the interview questions, let's tackle this tricky one. What are the most common challenges you face as a textile process controller, and how do you overcome them? This feels like one of those questions where you can easily fall into a trap.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think they're really trying to find out with this one?
They're checking out your problem-solving skills, how well you handle pressure, and if you can bounce back from setbacks.
Right.
So think back to the challenges you faced in your previous roles, things like tough deadlines, equipment breaking down, or even running out of materials. The career guide actually talks about a few of these things. It shows how fast-paced and demanding textile production can be.
Yeah, it does.
So be ready with specific examples outlining the problem, what you did to fix it, and what positive results came out of it.
So I should come prepared with those specific examples, explaining the problem, the steps I took, and the positive outcome I achieved.
Exactly. Show them you can think critically, analyze situations, and find those effective solutions. For example, you could talk about how you tweaked a production process to create less waste, or how you came up with a new quality control measure to catch any defects super early on.
Got it. And I'm guessing they might ask follow-up questions about how I measured those improvements or what challenges I faced when I put those changes into place.
Absolutely. Be ready to dig into those details and show them you're all about analyzing things and constantly making things better.
This is where all that preparation really makes a difference.
Mm.
Okay, on to question number 5. How do you ensure that quality standards are met in the production process? I'm thinking this needs more than just saying, I'm good at noticing details.
You're right. This question needs a much broader answer, one that shows you really get the whole quality control process and that you're committed to keeping those standards high. You could mention that you know all about quality management systems that are standard in the industry, like ISO 9001. It basically sets out all the guidelines for how a quality management system should work.
Okay, yeah. ISO 9001 is all about making sure organizations are systematic about managing quality. So I could say that I would implement quality checks at every stage of production. I'd use statistical process control methods. I'd regularly audit all the processes to catch and fix any problems.
Exactly. Show them that you're proactive about managing quality, not just reacting when things go wrong. And be ready for them to ask you about specific methods or tools you've used in the past for quality control.
Okay, this is where I get to show off my inner quality guru.
Right.
Now let's switch gears and talk about teamwork with question number 6. How do you manage a team effectively to make sure production targets are met? Time to show off those leadership skills.
Absolutely. This question is all about your ability to motivate, guide, and empower your team to all work together toward a common goal. And the career guide actually points out that a textile process controller often works in a really loud environment, maybe even being exposed to chemicals and dust. Yeah. That can definitely affect team morale, so you want to show them how you keep everyone motivated and productive in that kind of setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I talk about things like encouraging a positive team culture, setting clear expectations, giving regular feedback, and making sure people collaborate and communicate well?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And be ready to share specific examples of how you've successfully led teams before. Highlight how good you are at delegating tasks, resolving conflicts, and celebrating achievements.
Okay, I can already picture myself giving a motivational speech on the factory floor, getting everyone pumped to hit those production goals. Okay, so speaking of that, I'm curious about follow-up questions for this one. What else might they ask?
They might ask about your approach to, like, managing performance, how you handle team members who aren't performing well, or your strategies for helping your team develop professionally. They might even ask about a time you had to make a tough decision as a leader and how you dealt with it.
Got it. They want to see I'm going to handle the people side of things just as well as the technical stuff.
Right.
Okay, next question. How do you stay up to date with the latest developments and trends in the textile industry? Feels like they're testing my dedication to lifelong learning here.
It totally is. The textile industry never stops changing. New technologies, materials, and sustainability practices are always popping up.
Yeah.
So you want to show them that you're proactive about learning more and staying ahead of the game.
So should I mention things like attending industry conferences and reading trade publications? What about participating in webinars and engaging with like online forums or professional network?
Exactly. Be ready to share specific examples like a conference you went to recently, a journal article that you found interesting, or even a specific trend or development that you're really interested in and how you think it will impact the future of making textiles.
This is where my inner textile geek gets to shine.
Yeah.
Okay, on to question number 8. How do you prioritize tasks when you're managing multiple projects at the same time? Time management is super important in any job, but especially in a fast-paced environment like textile manufacturing.
So true. This question is all about seeing how organized you are and how well you handle different priorities. Show them you have a system for managing your workload, whether it's using to-do lists, project management software, or even something like the Pomodoro technique.
So instead of just saying, I'm good at multitasking, I should actually explain my process for breaking down those big projects into smaller tasks, setting realistic deadlines, and using my time wisely.
Yeah, exactly. And be ready to share an example of a time you successfully juggled multiple projects at once.
Okay.
Really highlight your ability to adapt when priorities shift, stay organized, and always meet those deadlines.
Okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Now, let's tackle a question that can be kind of uncomfortable. How do you handle conflict in the workplace?
Yeah.
No one likes drama, but let's be real, it's bound to happen.
It's going to happen.
What do you think?
This question is meant to see how emotionally intelligent you are, how well you communicate, and how you resolve conflicts. Emphasize your ability to stay calm, really listen to people, understand different points of view, and find solutions everyone can agree on.
So instead of saying, I just avoid conflict, I should talk about my approach to mediating disagreements, finding common ground, and creating a work environment that's respectful and where people work together well.
Exactly. And be prepared to share an example of a time you successfully resolved a conflict. Highlight the steps you took, the challenges you faced, and the positive result you achieved.
Okay, conflict resolution skills. Check. Now, before we move on to the next set of questions, I want to go back to what we talked about earlier, about using RoleCatcher's AI to increase your chances of getting noticed by those ATS, those applicant tracking systems.
Yeah, RoleCatcher's AI can be a total game changer when it comes to making your CV and resume the best they can be. It looks at job descriptions and picks out the most important skills and keywords that employers are looking for. This helps you tailor your application to really stand out.
It's like having a secret weapon to help you get your foot in the door.
Exactly. And for those tough interview questions, their Copilot AI is like a personal coach who gives you feedback on your answers, which can help you sound more polished and confident.
Awesome. So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, just remember, preparation is key.
Absolutely.
The more you know about the company, the role, and the industry as a whole, the more confident you'll be in that interview.
For sure. And don't forget to practice your answers out loud. RoleCatcher's Copilot AI can be a great tool for this because it gives you feedback on how you're saying things and helps you see where you can improve. Welcome back to our deep dive into acing that Textile Process Controller interview. We've already gone over some common questions, but now it's time to level up and really get into those scenarios that test your leadership and decision-making skills.
Okay, I'm ready for the challenge. What do we have first?
Okay, let's start with this one. Describe a time you had to make a tough decision that affected your team. How did you handle it? This question is all about showing them how you use good judgment, especially when you're under pressure.
Okay, so they're not just looking for a right or wrong answer. They want to see how I think things through and how I consider different factors when I have to make tough choices.
Exactly. Think of a time you had to make a decision that wasn't easy. Maybe you had to choose between two ways of producing something where each way had pros and cons. Or maybe you had to deal with a team member who wasn't performing well. You want to walk them through your approach, like, did you get input from your team? Did you think about the long-term effects? Did you communicate your reasoning clearly?
This reminds me of something in the career guide. It talked about how important communication skills are for a textile process controller.
Oh, yeah.
It said that clear communication is super important for coordinating tasks, resolving issues, and making sure everyone is on the same page.
That's a great point, and it connects directly back to this interview question. They want to see that you can communicate well, especially when you're dealing with sensitive or tough situations.
Okay.
So be prepared to talk about how you dealt with any pushback or concerns from your team and how you made sure everyone understood why you made the decision you did.
Okay, so clear communication and a solid decision-making process are super important here. What kind of follow-up questions should I expect?
Well, they might ask about what happened after you made your decision. Was it successful?
Mm-hmm.
Were there any unexpected consequences?
Right.
They might also ask about what you learned from the whole thing and how you'd handle a similar situation differently if you had to do it over again.
Okay.
It's all about showing that you can learn and grow from your experiences.
Got it. So be prepared to show that I can think critically, weigh different factors, communicate well, and learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
What's the next challenging situation they might ask about?
How about this one? How do you keep your team motivated and engaged, especially when the work environment is pretty repetitive? This one goes beyond just technical know-how and looks at your leadership style and how you create a positive work environment.
Yeah, it's no secret that working in textile production can involve a lot of repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
And that can definitely lead to people getting bored and not caring as much if you don't handle it well.
Yeah.
What are some key strategies I could talk about?
Okay, think about ways you can shake things up a bit.
Okay.
Like having people rotate through different tasks or maybe offering cross-training opportunities. Remember, the career guide mentioned that textile process controllers often work with a bunch of different departments like design, production, and quality control.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could talk about how you'd encourage collaboration and knowledge sharing between these departments.
Okay.
It can create a more stimulating and engaging environment for everyone.
I like that. Creating a sense of teamwork and a shared purpose can definitely make the atmosphere more positive and motivating.
Yeah.
What other strategies would you suggest?
You could talk about recognizing and rewarding good work, giving people opportunities to develop professionally, and creating a culture where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas and concerns openly.
Okay.
It's all about empowering your team and making them feel like they matter.
Right. Okay. So it's about being more than just a boss. It's about being a leader who inspires people and makes them want to do their best. What about follow-up questions? What else might they want to know?
Well, they might ask about specific challenges you faced in motivating teams in the past and how you handled them. Or they could ask about your approach to dealing with conflict and keeping a positive and productive environment, even when you have difficult personalities or tricky situations to navigate.
Got it. Be prepared to show them my leadership style, my ability to connect with people, and how committed I am to creating a positive and engaging workplace.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a question that tests both leadership and performance management. How would you handle a situation where a team member just isn't meeting those performance expectations?
This one requires a delicate balance. You need to show empathy, but also hold people accountable. You need to show you can address those performance issues effectively while still maintaining a supportive and respectful relationship with everyone on your team.
Right, it's not about being harsh or confrontational. It's about understanding why someone isn't performing well and finding solutions that help both the individual and the whole team.
Yeah, exactly. You might talk about setting clear expectations, providing regular feedback, pinpointing areas where they can improve, and offering extra training or support. Remember, the career guide mentions that a textile process controller often has to train and supervise those entry-level operators. So this is a good chance to show off your mentoring and coaching skills.
That's a really good point.
Mm.
It shows that I'm not just focused on hitting production targets, I'm also invested in my team members' growth and development.
Right.
What about follow-up questions? What else might they ask about how I manage performance?
They might ask for specific examples of how you've dealt with performance issues in the past, focusing on the steps you took, the challenges you faced, and what the outcomes were.
Okay.
They might also ask about how you approach performance reviews and how you use them as a way to help people develop and improve.
Got it. Be prepared to show them how good I am at spotting where people need to improve, giving constructive feedback, and putting those plans for improvement into action. Okay, let's switch gears now and get into the more technical side of the role with this question. Tell us about your experience using computer-aided manufacturing, CAM, and computer-integrated manufacturing, CIM, systems in textile production.
This one's crucial. Technology is a huge part of how textiles are made these days. The interviewer wants to know how comfortable you are with these systems and if you can really use them effectively to make production better.
All right, I remember the career guide emphasizing how important CAM and CIM are for textile process controllers,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to making sure everything meets those specifications throughout the whole production process.
Exactly. Be ready to talk about your specific experience with different CAM and CIM software packages, the types of tasks you've done using them, and the positive impact you've seen, like how they've made things more efficient, improved quality, and saved money.
Okay.
You can even mention any certifications or special training you have in these areas.
So, for example, I could talk about how I've used CAM software to create designs, plan production runs, and control the machines.
Sure.
Or how I've used CIM systems to connect different stages of production and collect data for analysis.
Perfect. Give them those specific examples that show you know your stuff and that you can leverage technology to make production run smoothly.
Oh, and be ready for follow-up questions. They might ask you about a specific project where you use these systems, the challenges you ran into, and the solutions you came up with. Okay, time to brush up on my CAM and CIM skills. Now let's focus on safety and compliance. Here's the question. How do you stay up to date with the latest industry regulations and safety standards related to making textiles?
This question is all about showing them how committed you are to creating a safe and compliant workplace. Remember, the career guide mentioned that there are tons of regulations in the textile industry, covering everything from protecting the environment to keeping workers safe.
Uh,
And these rules are always changing, so it's super important to stay informed to make sure everything's being done safely and ethically.
Okay, so how can I show them that I am knowledgeable and committed to safety and following regulations?
You can mention the specific resources you use to stay updated, like industry magazines, government websites, professional groups, and training courses.
Okay.
You can also talk about going to conferences or webinars on these topics and networking with experts in the field.
All right, so it's all about being proactive and seeking out information and staying current on all the latest regulations and best practices. What about follow-up questions? What else might they ask?
They might ask about specific regulations or safety standards and how you'd make sure your team followed them.
Hmm.
They could also give you a made-up scenario and ask what you do, to test your knowledge and judgment. Like they might ask, what would you do if you found a safety hazard in the production area?
Got it. So be prepared to show that I know the relevant regulations, that I'm good at problem solving, and that I'm truly committed to safety.
Right.
Now let's explore how well you adapt and manage change with this question. Describe a time when you had to introduce a new process or technology at work. What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them?
The textile industry is always evolving, so you got to be comfortable with change. This question is designed to see how well you embrace new ideas, lead change, and deal with any resistance that might come up. The career guide actually mentioned that the textile industry is getting more and more focused on sustainability and ethical production.
Right.
Putting those kinds of changes into practice can be tough, especially in an industry like textiles that's been around for so long.
You're absolutely right. So should I think about a time I had to implement something new, like a software system, a production method, or even a safety protocol?
Yeah, exactly. Describe those challenges you faced, whether it was pushback from your team, technical glitches, or budget constraints.
Okay.
Then highlight those steps you took to overcome them, focusing on your communication, problem solving, and just plain persistence.
So it's not just about having good ideas, it's about making them happen and getting everyone on board. What kind of follow-up questions should I be ready for?
They might ask about what you learned from that experience, how you do things differently next time, or your strategies for getting people to buy into change.
Okay.
They want to see that you learn from your experiences and that you can adjust your approach based on the specific challenges you face.
Got it. So being adaptable and willing to learn from challenges is key. Now let's move on to a question that really emphasizes teamwork. How do you make sure communication and collaboration are running smoothly between those different departments involved in textile production, like design, production, and quality control?
This one highlights just how interconnected everything is when you're making textiles.
Yeah.
As a textile process controller, you're often that central hub, connecting everyone, making sure communication is clear, and everyone is working together effectively. And remember how the career guide mentioned how textile process controllers interact with the cost calculation office? That shows just how important communication across different departments really is.
So it's about breaking down those silos and making sure everyone feels a sense of shared purpose and responsibility across those different departments.
Yeah.
What are some specific strategies I could talk about?
You can talk about setting up clear channels of communication, having regular meetings with people from different departments, using technology to make sharing information easier, and fostering a culture where people feel comfortable speaking up and giving feedback.
I like the idea of using technology.
Mm.
Could I mention things like project management software, online collaboration tools, or even something as basic as shared folders for documents?
Absolutely. Show them you're tech savvy and that you can use it to streamline communication and boost collaboration.
Okay.
And get ready for follow-up questions about specific challenges you faced in making that cross-departmental communication work.
Hmm.
They might even ask about a time when things went wrong because of miscommunication and how you fixed it.
Right. So clear communication, listening to each other, and having a collaborative attitude are super important for success in this role. Now let's switch gears and talk about continuous improvement. The next question is, how do you approach making things better and optimizing processes in textile production?
This one is all about showing your proactive mindset, your analytical skills, and how much you care about efficiency and quality. The textile industry is always under pressure to increase productivity, lower costs, and be more sustainable. So your ability to drive continuous improvement is super valuable to them.
So it's not just about keeping things the way they are, it's about always looking for ways to make things better, faster, and more efficient.
Exactly. You can mention specific tools or methodologies you've used, like Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, or Kaizen, which are commonly used to eliminate waste, streamline those processes, and improve quality.
Could you quickly explain what those methodologies are all about, just to refresh your listeners' memory?
Sure. Six Sigma is all about reducing defects and variability in processes.
Hmm.
Lean manufacturing focuses on eliminating waste and being super efficient by honing in on value-added activities.
Right.
And Kaizen is about encouraging continuous improvement through small, incremental changes that involve everyone on the team.
Those are great summaries. So I could talk about how I've used those principles in my previous roles. Maybe I could highlight a project where I successfully made a process more efficient, reduced waste, or improved the quality.
Exactly. Giving specific examples that show you understand and have actually used these methods will make your answer much stronger. And be ready for follow-up questions. They might ask about specific tools and techniques you've used, the challenges you ran into, and the results you achieved.
This is where I get to show them how much I love solving problems and making things more efficient.
Right.
Okay, now let's look at a scenario that really tests how well you handle those unexpected challenges. What do you do when a production deadline is at risk because of something unexpected, like a machine breaking down or running out of materials?
This question is all about your crisis management skills. They want to see how you think on your feet and solve problems under pressure. The textile industry is known for its fast pace and tight deadlines, so being able to handle those unexpected hiccups is super important.
Right, so it's not about freaking out or blaming others. It's about taking charge, figuring out what's going on, and coming up with solutions.
Exactly. You can walk them through your approach, starting with figuring out what caused the problem and how it might affect that deadline. Then talk about how you'd communicate with everyone involved, like your team, your manager, and any other departments that are impacted.
Okay, and then I would brainstorm solutions, considering all the resources and options I have available.
Yes. Think about things like getting materials delivered faster, shifting resources around, adjusting production schedules, or even finding new suppliers. The key is to show them you can think strategically, prioritize what needs to be done first, and communicate clearly, even when things are stressful.
All right, so stay calm, think strategically, and take decisive action. What kind of follow-up questions could they ask to really get into how I manage those crisis situations?
They might ask for a specific example of a time you successfully handled a crisis. Highlight the steps you took, the challenges you faced, and what the outcome was. Or they might give you a hypothetical scenario and ask how you'd handle it, making you think on your feet and showing how adaptable you are.
This is where my experience and problem-solving skills really come into play. Okay, let's move on to a question that focuses on another crucial part of textile production. How do you make sure that waste is kept to a minimum and resources are used efficiently in the production process?
This question taps into that growing emphasis on sustainability and being environmentally responsible within the textile industry. Remember how the career guide highlighted how textile companies are getting more and more into eco-friendly practices? It helps reduce their environmental impact and appeal to consumers who care about the planet.
Yeah, it does. So it's not just about hitting those production targets. It's also about doing it in a way that minimizes waste, saves resources, and reduces the overall impact on the environment.
Exactly. You can highlight what you know about sustainable production, like using recycled materials, implementing water-saving techniques, optimizing energy use, and minimizing waste.
I'm seeing a pattern here. Many of these questions are about showing not just my technical skills, but also my awareness of what's happening in the industry and my ability to adapt and be innovative.
You're absolutely right. The textile industry never stands still. Employers are looking for people who aren't just skilled, but also adaptable, forward-thinking, and dedicated to making things better.
Okay. So should I talk about specific things I've done in past roles to reduce waste, improve efficiency, or make things more sustainable? Like I could mention a time when I set up a recycling program, optimized a process to use less water, or introduced a new technology that saved energy.
Exactly. Give them those concrete examples to show you're committed to sustainability. It will make your answer stronger and show you're on the same page as the industry when it comes to its changing values. And be ready for those follow-up questions. They might ask about specific challenges you faced when you put these initiatives in place, what results you got, or even your ideas for making things even more sustainable within the textile production process.
This is where I get to let my passion for sustainability and innovation really shine.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift our focus to a question that really emphasizes the importance of quality control and paying attention to the little things. How do you make sure fabric defects are spotted and dealt with quickly and efficiently?
This one is about showing how much you care about quality and your ability to find and fix problems fast. Making textiles is a complicated process, and defects can happen at any stage. Being able to spot and address those defects quickly is super important for maintaining quality and minimizing waste.
So it's about having a keen eye for detail, understanding the production process inside and out, and being systematic about quality control.
Exactly. You can talk about implementing strict quality checks at each stage of production, using advanced technology to detect defects, and empowering your team to find and report any potential issues. The career guide mentioned using something called statistical process control. It's all about using statistics to monitor and control the production process.
Right. Statistical process control can be really powerful for spotting trends, noticing anything unusual, and stopping those defects from happening in the first place. I can mention how I've used these techniques in past roles to make things better and reduce waste.
Great. And be prepared for those follow-up questions. They might ask about specific quality control methods you've used, challenges you've faced in finding and fixing defects, and your strategies for always improving quality control.
Okay, I'll make sure to highlight how detail-oriented I am, my problem-solving skills, and my commitment to delivering top-notch products.
Sounds good.
Now, let's move on to a question that tests your ability to handle complaints effectively. How would you deal with a situation where a customer reports a quality issue with a fabric?
This one checks out your customer service skills, how you handle sensitive situations diplomatically, and your problem-solving abilities. Keeping customers happy is super important in the textile world.
Yeah.
So you got to show them you can handle those complaints like a pro.
It's more than just saying sorry, right? It's about taking responsibility, figuring out what went wrong, and finding a solution that keeps the customer happy and prevents the same problem from happening again.
You got it. You could walk them through your approach, starting with showing empathy and understanding for the customer's concerns. Then explain how you'd get all the important details, like what the specific defect is, the batch number, and how to contact the customer.
Okay, and then I should thoroughly investigate the problem, tracing it back to where it originated in the production process.
Exactly. This might mean looking over production records, inspecting samples from that batch, and talking to the people who were involved in making that fabric. The goal is to find that root cause of the defect and fix it so it doesn't happen again.
So it's not just about putting out the immediate fire, it's about preventing future fires and making sure customers stay happy in the long run. What kind of follow-up questions could they ask to dig deeper into how I handle customer complaints?
Well, they might ask you to share a specific time you successfully resolved a customer complaint, highlight what you did, the challenges you faced, and the positive outcome. They could also give you a hypothetical scenario, like imagine a customer reports a defect in a fabric that's going to be used for a really important project.
Right.
They want to see how you handle the pressure and stay calm while dealing with a sensitive issue.
Got it. Be prepared to show them my communication skills, my problem-solving abilities, and my dedication to making sure customers are happy. Now, let's look at a question that's about cost optimization in textile production. How do you balance the need to keep quality high with the pressure to cut production costs?
This question is about showing that you can think strategically, analyze data, and make smart choices that are good for both quality and the bottom line. The textile industry is really competitive, so finding ways to reduce costs without sacrificing quality is crucial for success.
Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope. You can't just slash costs without thinking. You have to find ways to make processes better, reduce waste, and improve efficiency, all while keeping that final product top-notch.
Exactly. You could talk about your experience with putting cost-saving measures in place. Things like negotiating better prices with suppliers, streamlining processes, cutting down on material waste, and using energy more efficiently.
Right. And the career guide mentioned that textile process controllers often work with the cost calculation office to make sure production stays within budget. Maybe I could talk about how I would collaborate with them to find ways to save money.
That's a great idea. Showing them you can work across different departments and use their expertise to achieve common goals is a real plus. And be ready for follow-up questions. They might ask about specific ways you've saved costs in the past, what results you achieved, or even your ideas for how to optimize costs further without affecting quality.
This is where my analytical skills and understanding of textile production really come in handy. Now let's shift gears and talk about leadership and motivation. How do you create a culture of continuous improvement within your team?
This question is all about showing your commitment to creating a learning environment where your team feels encouraged to find ways to make things better, share ideas, and put those changes into action. The career guide really emphasized how important it is to constantly learn and adapt in the textile industry. So showing them you can cultivate that kind of mindset in your team is really valuable.
Right. So it's not just about me as the leader coming up with all the brilliant ideas. It's about creating a space where everyone feels like they can contribute and make a difference.
Exactly. You can talk about creating clear ways for people to share ideas, providing training and development opportunities, recognizing and rewarding people who contribute to making things better, and encouraging open communication and feedback.
I really like that idea of recognizing and rewarding people who help make things better. It creates that positive cycle and encourages everyone to be more proactive and innovative. What about follow-up questions? What else might they be curious about when it comes to how I create that culture of continuous improvement?
They might ask about challenges you faced in creating this kind of environment, how you overcame them, and what results you achieved.
Yeah.
They could also ask about your strategies for motivating your team, encouraging innovation, and measuring the impact of all those efforts to make things better.
Got it. Be ready to show them my leadership style, my communication skills, and how dedicated I am to creating a culture where people are always learning and improving. Now let's get into a question that's a bit more technical and tests your problem-solving abilities. How would you handle introducing a brand new type of fabric into the production process? Making sure it can be produced efficiently and meets all those quality standards.
This one is about seeing how well you adapt to new challenges, learn quickly, and make changes happen. The textile industry is constantly changing. New materials, technologies, and processes pop up all the time. Being able to incorporate those new things into production is key to staying ahead of the game.
Okay, so it's about being okay with change,
Yeah.
really understanding the fundamentals of textile production, and being able to apply that knowledge to new situations.
Exactly. You could walk them through your approach, starting with researching that new fabric really thoroughly.
Okay.
Find out everything about its composition, its properties, and any special ways it needs to be handled.
Then I'd need to figure out if that new fabric works with our current machines and processes, making any adjustments or changes needed to make production go smoothly.
Right. You might even need to work with the engineering team to modify machines, adjust settings, or come up with new ways of operating them.
And of course, I'd need to put those strict quality control measures in place to make sure that new fabric meets every single standard.
Absolutely. You might need to come up with new ways to test the fabric, tweak those existing quality control protocols, and train your team on the ins and outs of that new material.
So it's a multifaceted challenge that needs a mix of technical knowledge, problem-solving skills, and adaptability.
Yeah.
What follow-up questions could they ask to really test my ability to handle this kind of situation?
They might ask about specific problems you faced when introducing new materials or technologies into production, what you learned from them, and how you would minimize those risks and make sure the transition goes smoothly. They could even throw you a curveball with a hypothetical situation involving a really tricky fabric or a super tight deadline, to see if you can think on your feet and find creative solutions.
This is where my love of learning and ability to think outside the box really come in handy.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at a question about dyeing. How do you ensure that the dyeing process is consistent and that the colors always meet those specifications?
This one is all about showing that you know the different dyeing techniques, that you can control all those variables, and that you're committed to getting consistent, high-quality results every time.
Okay.
Dyeing textiles is a complex process. It involves so many different factors like dye concentration, temperature, pH levels, and how long the dyeing process takes.
Yeah.
Getting those colors consistent requires a lot of attention to detail, precise control of all those factors, and super strict quality control measures.
Right, so it's not just about tossing the fabric into a dye bath and hoping for the best. It's about understanding the science behind dyeing, carefully controlling everything, and checking the quality at every step of the way.
You got it. You could talk about your experience with those different dyeing techniques, your knowledge of color theory, and how you can use tools like spectrophotometers or other color measuring devices to make sure that dyed fabric perfectly matches what the customer wants.
The career guide mentioned that it's important to understand the chemical properties of dyes and how they react with different types of fibers.
Oh, right.
I could highlight what I know about that and explain how I'd use that knowledge to make sure the colors are always consistent and accurate.
That's a great point. Showing that you really understand the science behind dyeing will make you stand out as an expert and demonstrate how committed you are to quality. And be ready for those follow-up questions. They might ask about specific challenges you faced in getting those colors consistent, your troubleshooting strategies when things go wrong with the dyeing process, or your experience with setting up color management systems.
Okay, I'll make sure to emphasize how much I pay attention to detail, my problem-solving skills, and my knowledge of how textile dyeing works. Now, let's move on to a question that's all about inventory management. How do you make sure that raw materials are available when they're needed and that inventory levels are just right?
This question is about testing your understanding of supply chains, your ability to predict what you'll need, and your skills in managing inventory effectively. Managing inventory well is super important in the textile industry because you don't want production to get delayed, you want to minimize waste, and you need to keep costs under control.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot. Having enough raw materials on hand to meet demand, but not having so much that it's just sitting there costing money and potentially going to waste.
Exactly. You could talk about your experience with setting up inventory management systems, forecasting demand based on production schedules and sales projections, working with suppliers to make sure deliveries are on time, and implementing strategies to minimize waste and make sure inventory is turning over quickly.
And the career guide mentioned that textile process controllers often work closely with the purchasing department to make sure they have a steady supply of those raw materials. Maybe I could talk about how I'd work with them to predict demand, negotiate good prices, and set up efficient delivery schedules.
That's a great idea. Showing you can work with other teams and use their expertise is always a good thing.
Yeah.
And get ready for follow-up questions. They might ask about specific challenges you've had in managing inventory, how you deal with problems in the supply chain, or your experience with setting up just-in-time inventory systems.
Got it. I'll highlight my analytical skills, my organizational abilities, and my understanding of how supply chains work. Now, let's get into a question that's all about safety and making sure everyone follows the rules. How do you ensure that all safety protocols are followed in the textile production environment?
This question is about showing your dedication to safety, your leadership skills, and how you create a culture where everyone prioritizes safety. There are a lot of potential hazards in the textile industry.
Yeah.
Things like moving machinery, chemicals, dust, and noise.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone follows those safety protocols is absolutely critical to preventing accidents and keeping everyone safe.
It's about more than just putting up signs or having those occasional safety trainings, right?
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels responsible for safety and where people feel comfortable speaking up if they see something that's not right.
Exactly. You could talk about having those regular safety inspections, giving ongoing safety training, empowering your team to report hazards, recognizing and rewarding those who really prioritize safety, and holding everyone accountable for following the rules.
And the career guide mentioned that textile process controllers often work in loud environments where they could be exposed to chemicals and dust.
Right.
I could highlight that I'm aware of these specific hazards and explain how I would minimize the risks,
Okay.
like by providing the right protective gear and making sure there's proper ventilation.
That's a great point. Showing that you know the specific dangers of working in textile production and that you're committed to making things safer will make your answer stronger. And be ready for follow-up questions. They might ask about specific safety rules you would put in place, challenges you faced in getting people to follow the rules, or how you deal with people who break those safety protocols.
Got it. I'll highlight my leadership skills, my attention to detail, and how committed I am to creating a safe workplace.
Good.
Okay, now let's look at a question that's about dealing with tough conversations and addressing performance issues related to safety. How would you handle a situation where an employee keeps breaking safety rules, even after being warned multiple times?
This question is all about showing you can balance empathy with accountability.
Yeah.
They want to see that you enforce the rules consistently and that you're good at having difficult conversations. Ignoring safety violations can have really serious consequences, so you have to address them head on and effectively.
It's a tough situation because you have to be supportive and understanding while also being firm and enforcing those rules to keep everyone safe.
You're right, it is a balancing act. You could explain that you'd start by having a one-on-one conversation with the employee to figure out why they're not following the rules. Maybe they're rushing, they don't understand the risks, or maybe they're just careless.
Then I would emphasize how important it is to follow those safety
Oh, so
protocols.
driving home those potential consequences if they don't, not just for them, but for the whole team.
Right. It's important to make sure they understand how serious this is and that their actions have real consequences.
Absolutely. And if they still keep breaking those safety rules after all that, I'd have to escalate things.
Okay.
Maybe involve higher management or even HR.
Right.
It's important to be fair and give people chances to do the right thing, but sometimes you got to take stronger action to keep everyone safe.
So it's a tricky situation that needs a mix of good communication, empathy, and being firm. What kind of follow-up questions might they ask to dig deeper into how I handle these kinds of situations?
They might ask for specific examples of times you've had to deal with people breaking safety rules, what challenges came up, and what the results were.
Right.
They could also ask about your company's disciplinary procedures for safety violations and how you'd apply them fairly and consistently.
Got it. So I'll be prepared to show them that I can have those tough conversations, enforce those safety rules effectively, and create a culture of accountability within my team. Okay, let's switch gears now and look at a question that's all about analyzing data and finding ways to make things better. How would you use data to identify trends and improve efficiency in the textile production process?
This question is about showing off your analytical skills, how well you understand using data to make decisions, and how you can use technology to optimize processes. The textile industry is becoming more and more data-driven.
Yeah.
So showing that you can use data to improve efficiency is super valuable.
Right, it's not just about going with your gut or relying on what you've seen. It's about using data to find patterns, spot trends, and make informed choices.
You got it. You could talk about your experience with collecting and analyzing data from production, identifying those key performance indicators,
Okay.
and using data visualization tools to communicate insights and drive those improvement initiatives.
The career guide mentioned using computer-integrated manufacturing, CIM systems, in textile production. Those CIM systems collect tons of data, which can be analyzed to find bottlenecks, optimize processes, and just make everything run more smoothly.
That's a fantastic point. Highlighting your experience with CIM systems and your ability to take that data and turn it into valuable insights will really show them your technical skills and how well you understand data-driven decision-making.
Okay, so I could talk about how I would use that CIM data to keep an eye on those production metrics, pinpoint areas where we could be more efficient, and then put changes in place to optimize those processes.
Exactly. And be ready for those follow-up questions. They might ask about the specific types of data you would collect, the tools you would use to analyze it, or the challenges you've encountered in using data to drive those improvements.
All right, this is where I get to unleash my inner data nerd. Now let's move on to a question that's all about continuous learning and staying ahead of the curve. How do you stay informed about the latest developments and innovations in the textile industry?
This one is all about showing your dedication to professional growth, your curiosity, and your passion for the textile industry. This industry is constantly changing.
Right.
So showing them that you're actively learning and staying ahead of the game is super important.
It's not just about what I learned in school or in past jobs.
Right.
It's about showing them I'm committed to constantly learning and adapting to those new trends and technologies.
Exactly. You can mention specific resources you use to stay in the loop. Things like industry magazines, online forums, professional groups, conferences, and webinars. You can also talk about your networking, how you connect with other people in the industry to stay on top of those latest developments.
The career guide mentioned that the textile industry is getting more and more focused on sustainability and ethical production. Maybe I could mention that I'm interested in those areas and how I stay informed about those latest advancements.
That's a fantastic idea. Showcasing your interest in how the industry is changing and how you stay up to date on those sustainable practices will resonate with employers who are looking for people who share their values.
Okay, so I could talk about attending conferences on sustainable textiles, reading articles about eco-friendly dyeing techniques, or even following blogs and podcasts that talk about ethical sourcing and fair labor practices.
Exactly. And be prepared for those follow-up questions. They might ask about specific trends or innovations that you're really interested in, how you see those impacting the future of the industry, or what you think about the challenges and opportunities they present.
This is where I get to show my passion for innovation and my belief in how the textile industry can really make a difference. Okay, let's look at a question about juggling multiple tasks. How do you prioritize your work when you're facing competing deadlines and urgent requests?
This one is all about seeing how organized you are, how well you handle pressure, and how you approach managing your time strategically. The textile industry is often really fast-paced and demanding,
Yeah.
so you have to be able to manage your time effectively and prioritize tasks. That's crucial.
It's not just about working harder or faster, right? It's about working smarter and making strategic choices about what to focus on.
You got it. You could talk about the techniques you use to stay organized, like to-do lists, project management software, or even something like the Eisenhower matrix, where you categorize tasks by urgency and importance. You want to show them that you have a system and that you can adapt when those priorities shift.
So I should be ready to explain how I decide what to tackle first, how I break down big projects into smaller, more manageable chunks, and how I make sure I'm using my time as efficiently as possible.
Exactly. And don't forget to give them a real example of a time you successfully managed a bunch of competing priorities. Highlight how you stayed organized, communicated clearly, and met all those deadlines.
Challenge accepted. Now let's switch gears and talk about something that's becoming increasingly important in the textile industry: sustainability.
Absolutely. The career guide really emphasizes this growing focus on eco-friendly practices. You can bet the interviewers are going to be interested in your perspective on it.
So how can we incorporate this into our interview prep?
Think about how you, as a textile process controller, can contribute to making the industry more sustainable.
Okay, give me some examples.
Do you know about eco-friendly dyes and materials? Have you implemented processes to reduce water and energy use? What about ideas for minimizing waste or even recycling those textile byproducts?
Those are all fantastic points. It's not just about knowing the right terms, it's about showing that you're genuinely committed to sustainability.
Exactly. And remember, sustainability isn't just about the environment.
Right.
It's also about ethical stuff, like fair labor practices and responsible sourcing.
You're right. It's about looking at the whole life cycle of a textile, from the raw materials to how it's eventually disposed of.
And don't be shy about asking them about their own sustainability initiatives during the interview. It shows you're engaged and that you really care about making a positive impact.
That's a great tip. Makes the interview more of a conversation and helps you see if your values line up with theirs.
Now, before we wrap things up, let's touch on how RoleCatcher's AI tools can be super helpful throughout this whole process.
Yes, tell me more about how their AI can help me stand out.
Remember those ATS systems, those digital gatekeepers we talked about?
RoleCatcher's AI analyzes those job descriptions to figure out what skills and keywords they're looking for.
Right.
Then it helps you tailor your CV and resume to make sure you catch their eye.
It's like having a personal stylist for my application, making sure it's dressed to impress those algorithms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for those nerve-wracking interview questions, their Copilot AI is like having a personal coach. It gives you feedback on your answers and helps you polish your delivery.
It's like having a practice interview with an expert, but without all the pressure of the real thing.
Exactly. So as we come to the end of our deep dive, remember that being prepared is your biggest advantage.
Yeah.
The more you know about the company, the role, and the industry, the more confident you'll be.
And don't underestimate the power of practicing. Talking through your answers out loud, even to yourself in the mirror, can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And if you ever get stuck or need some extra guidance, don't hesitate to check out those resources on RoleCatcher.
Yes.
They're there to support you every step of the way. To everyone out there getting ready for a Textile Process Controller interview, we wish you the best of luck. Remember to show them your passion, highlight those amazing skills you have, and think big when it comes to sustainability.
The textile industry has so much to offer, and with the right preparation, you'll be ready to create your own success story.
That's a wrap for this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.